Hi, I'm Dr. Kylie. I'm a wife, a mother, a chiropractor, and entrepreneur. And I don't know about you, but I love numbers. Now, you're going to love numbers too if you know how to read labs right. And if you don't, stick around. If you're looking for better patient success rates, improved business, if you are like me and you work with somebody who, well, most people like me, they don't have unlimited budgets. So when you can tell them that you can find the same answers you could from a GI map or an adrenal panel or organic acid test, similar answers anyways, from labs that they've already taken, blood they've already donated, money they've already shelled out, they're going to love you. That's what I do in my practice. The first thing I do with a new patient is I request all of their medical records. That way, I save them $3, $4, or $5,000, and I can still get a lot of really good information that's not only going to design my treatment plan, but improve their health in a much faster rate, and they're going to trust me more. So what I want to teach you guys today is how to read a metabolic panel. But this isn't just your regular metabolic panel reading. This is deep down functional medicine interpretation. We're going to go from normal lab ranges to much narrower lab ranges, what I call optimal or functional ranges. Those ranges are tighter, and they're going to get answers that that your patients haven't had beforehand. In fact, this works really, really well if your patients are like mine and they say, well, I have all these lab tests, but everybody just keeps telling me that they're normal. Yeah, I feel like crap. That's the prime patient for your functional medicine clinic. And stick around because this is what we're going to dive into today is the metabolic panel, how you can get answers they've been searching for without them shelling out more money. So here we go. All right, first off, these numbers are the optimal ranges like I talked about. These numbers I pulled from Dr. Corizon. He's well known. I'm sure you guys have heard of him. Dr. K, if he's also known. So that's who I pulled these numbers from. They're not my ranges, they're his. And I've clumped these markers up for a reason. As we go through this metabolic panel, we don't have time to get into the whys. If you want to learn the why behind everything, you got to go do some research and attend some seminars on your own. But we're going to dive into what these are from a functional medicine standpoint and also from a functional nutrition standpoint. So that's where these ranges come from. We're going to go quickly through this. So be sure you take your notes. You have the handout that came with this webinar. Be sure you write down what a high means and what a low means. And we're going to go into some patterns a little bit as we follow along, okay? So big deep breath. I love numbers, and you're about to love numbers too. Here we go. Albumin, BUN, and creatinine. Those, if they're high, if they're outside this indicated range, we're looking at kidney. When I'm talking to a patient, I will literally tell them, if I say kidney or if I say liver, I'm not talking kidney disease or liver disease. I'm talking kidney dysfunction and liver dysfunction. And what that means is that your kidneys are overworked. They're having to process so many things that they're not keeping pace. That's what we're talking about. So it provides relief for the patient that there's something not physically wrong with their kidneys or their liver. But it does indicate, hey, I may need some K in my treatment plan from systemic. I may need some KS in my treatment plan. And quite possibly, maybe some KDIR. Now, my favorite personally is the KS. It's very good for sensitive people. In fact, that's what this S kind of stands for, is kidney sensitive. And it works really well. So that's what albumin, BUN, and creatinine are if they're elevated, if they're outside that range. Now, if they're low, we're taking a look at kidney for albumin, kidney for creatinine, but BUN is different. If it's low, for BUN, it's going to indicate that they need hydrochloric acid or they have leaky gut or both. Now, you can test for leaky gut. You can have them drop $400 on a GI map or whatever the case may be, whatever your favorite lab test is, a Cyrex panel, whatever. But if you can determine if they have leaky gut using the labs that they've already taken and the money they've already spent and the blood they've already donated, they're going to love you forever. So if you're looking at like 10 to 12 here, they need HCl and you need to fix the leaky gut. Now for HCl, the supplement I love most is DS. You can also go DB12, but I do DS first because DB12 has B vitamins in it, and if they're struggling with methylation, that could be an issue. Leaky gut, we'll get into that in a second. But just in case, leaky gut, we have L-gut, Vista 1, and 2. Those are my 3 for leaky gut. Okay? So we're going to go through this fast. Like I said, write your notes down. Okay, these are also clumped together for a reason, because sodium and potassium are going to indicate adrenals. What if you could save yourself $200 ZRT adrenal panel and just go off of sodium and potassium? If they're low or high, you're looking at adrenals. If they're low, it's usually adrenal hypoadrenal. If they're high, it's usually hyperadrenal. What do you use? Easily enough, GA. Chloride. When it comes to chloride, we're looking again at kidneys. When it comes to calcium, we're going to look specifically for vitamin D. Now you know you have a physical lab value that would indicate they need vitamin D outside of a regular vitamin D lab draw. So once again, sodium and potassium, adrenals. Those electrolytes and your cortisol go hand in hand. Chloride, you're looking at kidneys. Calcium, you're looking at vitamin D. Here's what you use, GA and then D3. Now, if they're really low, my vitamin D protocol is to start them off at 25,000 IUs per day. If you're using the capsules, that's around 5 capsules, 6 capsules. If you're using the drops, every full dropper is around 3,000 IUs. So you're going to have to up that to, what is this, 6, 18, 7, 21, 8 droppers. There you go. 8 droppers of vitamin D3 to reach 25,000 IUs. Do that for a month and then drop down to 20,000 IUs and then 15, 10. And I usually keep them between 15 and 10 simply because we need vitamin D in our lives. Okay, total protein and globulin. You're not often going to find globulin. I've requested a lot of medical records. This one's not one that's typically seen, but it's very, very helpful. And it's not part of your metabolic panel, which is why I have these asterisks. But the two of them, when they're together, will give us an indicator of leaky gut. So now not only do you have BUN, but you have the total protein as well. And if you're lucky enough, you have globulin. If they're low or high, leaky gut, what do you use? L-gut, Vista 1 and 2. Simple enough. When I'm giving supplements, I want to keep them within a 4 to 5 range per month. And I usually tell patients to plan on up between $100 and $150 per month. So I need something that's going to work quickly and effectively, which is one of the reasons why systemic is my go-to for supplements. Next up, total bilirubin. AST, and ALT. We're always taught that those three are together and they're going to indicate liver. Now, as I said before, it's not liver disease, it's liver dysfunction. And this would indicate we need some detox help. So if you want to run Prep Body Brain, you now have a lab that will tell you why, or it will also tell you that you need to run it, but it's going to confirm to the patient that there are markers that tell you that they need to take that as well. And then the coolest part is you do Prep Body Brain and then rerun the labs afterwards, and you'll have better numbers. Now, when it comes to running labs during a detox, don't do it. Because while you're detoxing, it's going to skew these numbers. So do Prep Body Brain, wait a week, and then do the lab draw for the follow-up labs. So there you go. Total bilirubin, AST, ALT, liver. You can do a Prep Body Brain. You can also, put a break here, you can also do LS and bind. And if I want something simple that I can just work on in addition to other things, that's my route. Now, I've given a lot of LS and binds simply to teenagers who their parents want them here. They don't want to be here. So you just give them something very simple and effective, and they'll realize, wow, my menstrual cycle isn't that heavy anymore. Or I don't get so car sick while I'm driving in the car, those type of things. That would be a toxic indicator. LS bind, they'll work very well for you. All right, are you staying with me? We're going fast because we got to cover a lot of stuff in such a short period of time. Take a breather. Let's dive into the last few numbers here. Carbon dioxide. You're going to often see this outside the range. I oftentimes will see it at 20 or 21. Now, what that means is they're more of an acidic pH, and they need to kind of change up some of their foods to be more alkaline foods to bump that up. And I do that when you're doing dietary changes, you'll do that anyway. So I don't pay too much attention to that, but it is a marker that will say, hey, we need to fix up your diet, and they'll understand. When it comes to glucose, we all know hypoglycemia, hyperglycemia. Now this range, I want to caution you right here. Don't tell your patient if they're below 85 that they're hypoglycemic, because then they're going to go to their MD and tell their MD that their chiropractor told them they're hypoglycemic, and their MD is going to laugh at you, and they're not going to know who to trust. So just tell them that your blood sugar levels, their blood sugar levels, they're not optimal. And you and I both know how important blood sugar is. We want it to be within that range. It's a tight range, but that's the range you want it. If they're outside of the range, Sinulin's going to become your best friend. I tell patients that Sinulin is just like metformin, only it works better without the side effects. And they're like, is that really such a thing? And it is. Sinulin works wonders for blood sugar control. Okay, ALP, alk-Phos, is going to indicate liver if it's outside that range. You're not going to find it outside that range very often, but in the example I'm about to show you, it's going to be in the 200s, and I'm going to tell you why. Don't be alarmed at it, but know this. Uric acid. Uric acid is not in the metabolic panel, but it is very important when it comes to running a lab panel because it falls into a pattern and it will be high in a lot of instances. I've seen this to be high a lot, and it's not gout and it's not RA. So if that's the case, what is it then? Because we're always told the uric acid is gout. If you have uric acid high, and I'm going to touch base on this on another webinar, so be sure you catch up onto the how to create a treatment plan with labs. Because I'm going to go into in depth about this later. But if that's high and they have a really ugly lipid panel, we're looking at insulin resistance. And again, Sinulin is going to be part of that, but be sure you catch that next webinar and you'll get all the details regarding that and the full pattern. But so I threw that in just in case, because you're going to see it high a lot. And there are a lot of times where doctors will take that marker when you're requesting medical labs. Okay, there you go. Now, let's take a look at how we put all of this information together in patient care, because that's really all that matters, right? So what we're going to go through are medical records that I requested. We're only going to do her metabolic panel. We don't have time for the CBC and all the other stuff. But if you're going to take labs, you're going to order labs, here's what you need to order. A CBC with differential. Don't forget that part. If you're not doing it with differential, you're missing a huge piece of the puzzle. Metabolic panel. Blood sugar, so insulin, A1C, a full lipid panel, a full thyroid panel, and vitamin D. Those are my go-tos. If I'm going to tell somebody to go get labs ordered, or if they're asking me what labs they should get, that's the list I'm going to give them. If you want to order them yourself, more power to you. I just like to go through, because of the way phlebotomy works around here, it's just much easier for me to send them to their MD, get those labs requested. Their insurance is going to pay more of it from the MD as well, and then all I do is request them or they bring them to me. So those are the labs that you're going to want for the full pattern, for all of the detailed information that they're looking for, the answers that they're looking for. So once again, you're the hero and you're going to have that to your name. So 12-year-old girl, I'm going to tell you, she came in with her mom. I was treating her mom. She came in with these right here. Her mom was watching her walk down the hall one day and was like, "Why are you walking funny?" She was so embarrassed, she didn't want to say anything about it, but she had some crazy vaginal sores. And her mom took pictures of it. She showed me the pictures, and they were pretty gnarly looking. So that's what started it all, okay? She's had stomach issues for her entire life. Random nausea, vomiting, always in pain, and horrible digestion. Fatigue is a major issue. Remember, she's 12. She has no zeal for life, and her body is frail. If you were to look at her, she almost looks anorexic. One, she doesn't eat a lot anyways, and two, because of these issues. But two, she just has that body type that's really, really tiny. So there you go. There's what she's dealing with. Now, where do we start? What do we do when it comes to treatment? Pull her lab. Pull your patient's lab, because you now know how to read them. Let's go. All right, so instead of listing out a whole bunch of numbers like I do in my office, I just took one lab test, because like I said, I request all of their medical records. I go back 5, 7, possibly even 10 years. So there's a lot of lab tests involved, and I have my assistant fill it out in our chart. So all I have to do is pull it up and look at it and make my comments or my notes. So to keep things simple, we're just going to stick with one lab. Then I've also noted that if they're outside of that optimal range, remember, this isn't the normal range. These are optimal or functional ranges. So we're talking about dysfunction here. We're not talking about diseases. If you remember, albumin, BUN, and creatinine, if they're high, then it's kidney. But you see right here that these are all low. So for albumin, we're looking at kidney. For creatinine, here's my little thing on creatinine, which is why I started. Creatinine, it's going to fluctuate depending on muscle mass. If you remember from medical school or whatever your background is, creatinine will change. It will be elevated in a bodybuilder, and it will be depressed in a little tiny, no muscle type body. So this one doesn't surprise me. She has literally enough muscle to cover up her bones. That's it. So even though it's low, I'm not worried about kidneys here, but albumin would indicate kidneys. And this BUN, if you can remember, hydrochloric acid, leaky gut. Now I've done this enough that most of this is memorized. And when you guys start doing it too, you'll get things memorized and you'll just become you'll get faster and faster at it. So BUN, I know that she's gonna need some gut work. We kind of knew that because of her symptoms, but now we have proof. We need a hydrochloric acid that's gonna be huge for her digestion. We need to fix leaky gut, which will be huge for inflammation in general and for food sensitivities. Creatinine, I'm not worrying about it because of that body frame. Then we get into sodium and potassium. Remember, these guys go together because we're looking at adrenals. Now, I will also tell you, her parents, when she came in to see me about a year ago, her parents got divorced. Her dad dropped the bomb on her mom that he had been cheating for quite a while and moved out with his fling and basically left mom and the 3 girls. So they've had big time lifestyle changes within the last 12 months. So just because of that, I'm gonna treat the adrenals anyways, but now I got a marker. So we're looking at, remember, DS or DB12, L gut, VISTA 1 and VISTA 2, kidney, K or KS, adrenals, GA. Calcium looks good, chloride. Chloride is liver, let me double check. Nope, chloride's kidney. Okay, calcium, remember, if calcium is low, we're looking at vitamin D. And I will tell you from her vitamin D marker that it was depleted. So I started her off at the 25,000 IUs. Okay, so now we're starting to get an outline of her treatment plan simply off of labs she already had. Okay, then we get into total protein and globulin. Remember, these two go hand in hand because they stand for leaky gut. One more thing, also the need for HCl. So you have BUN, total protein, globulin, all indicating the need for hydrochloric acid and to fix the leaky gut. Total bilirubin looks good, which I believe, if I remember right, is liver, but we have AST and ALT, so this one would indicate liver. And when I've only got one of them instead of all 3, I would even just simply throw in an L or an LS. She doesn't need the full gamut, but as you dive into the labs and into symptoms, you could easily throw in bind as well. Okay, CO2 looks good. I will tell you though, her diet was terrible. When it comes to like lunch, she would literally take cheese and crackers and eat that for her lunch, and maybe a granola bar for breakfast. Food was such a fight for her and her mom that her mom just gave up, and literally she hardly ate anything because of all these digestive issues. Glucose is low, so we're gonna throw on some stimulin somewhere along treatment. ALP, now remember, this was the alk phos. This was when I said you're not gonna see it elevated or depressed very often, but when you do, this one's gonna be because of bone growth. The other nice thing about requesting medical records is that somebody else has already had their eyes on them. So if you see like this crazy number, I mean, literally alk phos goes from 44 to 90, and this is at 208. So I know that her MD already had eyes on this, and it wasn't alarming. So I don't need to be alarmed either, but I do know that that can be elevated with bone growth, which makes sense. She's 12, she's going through puberty, and the bones are about the only thing she has in her body. So there you go. Uric acid, that wasn't taken. But remember, if uric acid is elevated, there's a good chance that it's not gout and it's not RA. There's a good chance it's insulin resistance. Like I said, we're going to dive into that in another webinar. Big deep breath. Okay, let's put all of that together. From the labs she already had, I will tell you the biggest thing here is I knew she was anemic. And I pulled that from her CBC. I also know she was very depleted in vitamin D. So that's the first place that you have to get started. If your patient has anemia, particularly iron anemia, forget it. No matter what you do, they're not going to heal. So fix the anemia first. And what I did was I talked to her about what kind of red meats she likes, because remember, she's very restrictive on her diet. And she said she loves hamburgers. So my change for her was that every time she had a hamburger, I encouraged her to eat it once or twice, at least a week, because that was her main source of red meat, to have a double patty. So if she was going out to Wendy's with her mom or her sisters, have a double bacon burger, not just a single. And she was totally on board with that. So make sure when you're doing dietary changes, especially in teenagers, be realistic. You telling them that they're going to go gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, sugar-free, yeah, they're going to look at you and not ever want to come back. So be realistic in your dietary changes. And then, like I said, I believe she did the liquids, because the vitamin D liquid tastes like orange soda, and so it's pretty good. So I think I had her on 8 drops a day, droppers, I should say. 8 droppers a day for a month, and then we backed off to 6 droppers and then 4 droppers. I believe that's where she stayed. Next up, remember, we had some blood sugar issues with that low glucose. So we're going to work on blood sugar with the Sinulin. We also had some adrenal fatigue. Blood sugar and adrenals go hand in hand, so it makes it really nice if you can treat them at the same time. So from here, I would be sure to include Sinulin, GA. You could even throw in PS for pancreas. And since her diet is limited, and if she would drink a shake, totally throw in this Catavo shake. I mean, I am a very, very picky person when it comes to shakes. I hate textures, and a lot of shakes deal with texture problems for me. Catavo shake passes the test. So if it passes the test for me, it's most likely going to pass the test for teenagers. And she did enjoy that Catavo shake. Then, like her symptoms suggested, she had some major gut issues. So I'll just write gut here. Now, when it comes to gut, I love to destroy, heal, rebuild. So I'm going to destroy all the bad guys. Then I'm going to heal leaky gut. And then I'm going to rebuild the probiotics, the enzymes, the hydrochloric acid, all that good stuff. So it's like a 3-step process. And usually when I'm doing gut, it takes a good 6 months, at least 4 months, but a good 6 months. And for her, we did the anemia first, help her with the energy. And then we focused on the gut because of all those stomach issues. That was her main complaint. So we went here first, here second, and then these 2 were third, as far as treatment goes. And then we did have some detox issues with the kidneys and the liver. I'm not going to put her through prep body brain. Not cool at this young age, I think. So we ran LS and bind. And I actually threw in bind with the gut as well, because as you're destroying things inside the gut, it's going to release toxins. And you want to make sure they get outside of the body. So throw in bind. All right. Can you breathe for a second? There you have it. That's what you now know from lab test she already had. One, it saves patients money, so now they can pay for your services, which is better in the long run anyways. 2, your patient success goes up. Your patient compliance goes up, and ultimately business goes up. So when you really know how to interpret labs that they've already taken, If you can dive into a CBC and now a metabolic panel, maybe even some lipid panels and thyroid panels, the better you become with numbers, this is going to naturally go up. I'm Dr. Kylie. Thanks Systemic for having me, and I hope you guys enjoyed the numbers. Now go out, don't be scared, request some medical records, and see what you can find in your patients.